Yeah, for sure. This is Sir Gibbs, again, has hit us up. Sir Gibbs the Inquisitive. So let me see here. Let's see what he says. There are many theories I have heard on your cast of who could be Jon Snow's biological parents, and his possible name in the books. A popular theory I have heard on the show proposed is that Lyanna and Rhaegar are not his parents. Okay, I love entertaining these thoughts and theories, shadowed in mystery. I, however, would like to offer up why the standing illustration brought to light in the show will most likely be the way it plays out in the books. And here is why I see this way. Okay, so making the case, I guess, that that Jon is R plus L equals J. Is that what you're getting, Sir Matt, from this?
Yep.
Okay, all right. So number one, Ned Stark is all about duty, honor, and responsibility. His word means more than its weight in gold, not just to the north, but to the entire Seven Kingdoms. This is why, in my mind, that Cersei asked him to admit his crimes and asked to take the black. With this in mind, follow along with my logical Vulcan rant. Okay, all right, we will.
Okay.
In the show, Ned Stark gives his word and promises his dear sister to protect her son and keep him safe. Knowing he cannot go back on his word, he fails to give any detail on this estranged woman who gave birth to his bastard. He does this for a very specific intention. Tell the one lie and not to, tell the one lie and do not indulge or say anything further. Okay. This prevents him from getting caught in the lie and losing his life and the life of his Targaryen nephew. Nephew, by the way. Okay. He is, in fact, half Stark and a member of the Wolf family, too. The lone wolf dies, but the pack survives. Very true. He tells his loving wife of his deeds, knowing that the lie would always haunt their marriage. But he did so to protect their entire family, and that makes sense. So, he's telling Catelyn that he's lying, saying this is his bastard.
Right.
We've heard a lot of people talk about this, and that to keep everybody safe, to keep Jon safe, etc. His only other lie he has told was at the headsman's block. Okay, so he's asked to lie, knowing it would sound more true from his own lips, and it cost him his head to prevent him from telling the truth. So again, he's given that. He's talking about at the time in which he's to confess his sins, proclaim that Joffrey is the one true king, and to give up all of this craziness. You know what I mean? All right. So watching season 7 the other night, and I caught a line Jon says in the Dragon Pit after telling Cersei he already had pledged himself to House Targaryen. I'm not going to swear an oath I can't uphold. Talk about my father if you want. Tell me that's the attitude that got him killed, but when enough people make false promises, words stop meaning anything. Then there are no more answers, only better and better lies. This quote is the embodiment of what his father taught him growing up. Okay, and I think that's true. Yeah. Jon's words actually carry a lot of weight, even to a crazy and controlling queen like Cersei. This is when I actually feel as if Cersei realized she will not keep the throne for very long and panicked. Cersei exits stage left. My point is duty, honor, responsibility, and honesty is what made the Starks who they are or were and what they stand for. So if Jon's parents are not Lyanna and Rhaegar, then why would Ned risk everything for this secret? That's not Ned's way. He put his family through this turmoil to save his only sister's child, and as we know from the show, true king to all Westeros. All right, yeah. All of how Jon was raised was by no better man than. So he's raised by no better man to groom him to one day be king. That being Eddard Stark, right? This I know is not in line with outside the box thinking for theories for the show, but I thought I would do a little honor for the extremely hard work and wizard of an author's hard work. Gurr spent a great many years developing the characters of Jon and Ned. Both characters would not be as honorable if Jon's parents are not Rhaegar and Lyanna. I am digging this world of your podcast and forever bend the knee to you, sirs. Thank you, your awesome listeners, for their engaging in discussion with the World of Ice and Fire. Sir Gibbs.
Mm-hmm. So,
we've had people, we've had Ravens. We ourselves have discussed the idea that that R+L equals J, and that is the way it's going to be, and that's the way it's been kind of laid out there in the show.
Yeah,
and I think Sir Gibbs is kind of making the case that's probably how it's going to be in the book.
That's what I feel is most likely.
And a lot of people are kind of going with that, I think
people have called me a Targaryen loyalist.
They have.
And it's because I believe that my favorite character, Jon Snow, is a Targaryen.
Okay. Yeah.
Just mainly the reason.
Yeah. So I mean, there are people who believe that child that Lyanna and, as I said before, Rhaegar had is young Griff. There are people who believe Jon Snow is Ashara Dane's child, and so on. So we actually have another Raven here in just a little bit that kind of follows up on all these thoughts that Sir Gibbs has just laid out for us too. So we can kind of talk about that. But first, it's time for trivia.
It is. All right, here we go. Trivia for this week. You can give me the basic answer. But I'm going to need, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be as detailed as possible, but pretty simple. What is the sigil of House Dondarrion?
Yeah.
Sir Ezra's favor's favorite character.
Beric Dondarrion. Beric Dondarrion is...
Beric Dondarrion, however you pronounce it. So.
Yeah. Is a boss. I love him to death, and I, love reading about
him to death multiple times.
That's true. Multiple times. I love him to death, and he rises again. Yeah. So, okay. Continuing on. So with Sir Gibbs's line of thought there. So the next one, maybe we can split this up. We can read this in sections. So this is going to be one of our last Ravens today, and then we'll have a big discussion after this one. So This is from Drew Hosser, who has sent us like a 4-point Raven here. So, good day, sirs. I've been listening for a while now and finally have a few crazy ideas to throw out there. Okay.
You've worn off on me.
On me. Good. That's good. Yeah. A quick backstory on my getting into A Song of Ice and Fire. I started watching the show last July for the first time after my good friend finally talked me into it. Kudos to that friend. And ended up getting caught up in all of the, season 2. I'm sorry, and ended getting caught up with all the season 2 shows before the season 7 finale. Yeah, after that, I began going down wiki rabbit holes and finally bought the books back in November, and I'm currently in for Feast of Crows. Okay. Also, a little side note: I'm from down in Kentucky. Nice. Yeah. That side of Cincinnati. So it's nice to listen to people from Columbus. Awesome. We're like neighbors.
Yeah.
That's great.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, here we go. Diving into some Bloodline theories, all right?
Oof.
Yeah. Number 1, Ashara Dane had a child who lived. That child was taken by Varys for a noble cause, who would have known her from when she was at court. So Varys knows her at court, takes her child for a noble cause. I believe that the child is either young Griff / Aegon, or he is the child, switched with Aegon when Aegon was sent to Essos. Okay? Whether her child was murdered or shipped across the world, I believe either instance could have caused her to take her own life.
That is a very good point. Like maybe Lyanna told Ned, and then that would mean that she could still have Jon, and she knew that Aegon had to go too.
Yeah, so exactly.
And Rhaenys is, Estrella Sand, so.
Right, yeah. So yeah, that's that. We've had this happen before where babies have been switched.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You have it happen in, spoilers, to this guy, kind of happens in Dance Dragons.
Yeah. Yep. It does. Yeah. So let's see here. whether her child was murdered or shipped across the world. I believe that in this instance, it could have caused her to take her own life. As for the father of the child, I think it could be Aerys, the Mad King, okay, who could have forced himself on Ashara at the tourney at Harrenhal, or Brandon Stark. And this is where I was telling Sir Matt before. I've not heard people mention Brandon Stark, who she crossed paths with, but it seems a little more murky and fits my second theory better. However, I think it works better to have him as a bastard of the king and therefore a Blackfire and also a Dane, hopefully bringing the Sword of the Morning mantle back into play. Okay, so that's interesting. Ashara Dane has a child, who's taken by Varys for this noble cause, that would be interesting. And that child possibly it would be a bastard child then, right?
Right.
I mean, so it does say at one point that she left, Elia Martell's service, and why would she leave her service? But maybe for, to get married is what people have speculated.
And the idea of the Sword of the Morning, which kind of ties into the whole Lightbringer prophecy theory idea, Azor Ahai.
Yeah, for sure.
And there is something about why did Ashara Dane jump into the sea? Yeah, why did she kill herself? And is Ashara Dane, now I'm blanking on her name, the Septa that's with Tyrion.
Yeah, with young Griff as well. Yeah, I can't remember her name either.
I read her name last week. It's like it starts with an L or something. I can't remember. But anyway, Tyrion's looking at her, and
it's not Mordain, is it?
No. Septa Mordain is the.
Oh yeah, okay, that's right.
The Maester or the Septa that ends up dying. She's with Sansa.
That's right. That's right.
Because we just read it. That's why you're thinking about it.
I
can't remember her name, but she's on the boat with Tyrion, and Tyrion sees her bathing, and he's like, "Oh,
yeah, she's beautiful."
He's like, "Oh, do you want to talk to her?" He's like, "No, I want to."
Oh, yeah, he does. Yeah. So, anyways, go ahead and read the next one there, sir, man. I'll look up who that sept is.
Okay. What?
Lamore.
Lamore, yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
What if Ashara's son looked less like a Dane and more like his father, Brandon Stark? When Ned sees this, he thinks that Starfall is no place to raise a son of the North and takes the bastard of Brandon Stark back to Winterfell, with him becoming Jon Snow. And rather than sully his brother's name with the news of a bastard, Ned chooses to bear the burden. Which actually is really interesting because he does kind of think, yes, it always comes back to Brandon. When he's talking to Catelyn and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He would have wanted to protect Brandon's memory, especially in Catelyn's eyes and in the eyes of his children. However, where would that leave Rhaegar and Lyanna's child? I believe that he would be Aegon / young Griff. Gur tells us the seed is strong, so Rhaegar's seed could lead to Jon's unmistakable Stark looks.
Yeah, so the question is, could Rhaegar's seed lead to Jon's unmistakable Stark looks? That makes a lot of sense if the seed, being the male seed, is gonna. That's a good point. We just talked about that with how could that happen? Now the opposite of that is we mentioned Baelor Breakspear, for example. And
that the Targaryens sometimes their seed is actually kind of weak.
Yeah.
And then they talk about how Lyanna had the wolf's blood in her, and she's so wild, and that would explain maybe why Jon is.
Yeah.
It's like her seed was so strong, or not her seed, but her, it overrides Rhaegar's.
For sure. So in theory number 2 here, we're saying that Brandon Stark is the father of Jon Snow.
Yeah. That's an interesting thought. I had not thought about that.
Yeah, it is interesting, actually. So, okay, let's continue on. Number 3. As for a general question surrounding Lyanna's death and childbirth, the other major character that we know about, or that I recall, experiencing complications with their childbirth is Joanna Lannister with Tyrion, and Rhaella Targaryen with Daenerys. Okay, so true. They both.
Yeah, which is where a lot of people think that, the 3 heads of the dragon, Jon, Dany, Tyrion, also kind of like the 3 main characters.
Right.
Could potentially all 3 be dragon riders. Tyrion has the dragon dreams.
Right, true. So
is that they could just and that's where the Mad King forcing himself on Joanna kind of comes in. That would make Tyrion a Targaryen. That would not make them, however, all 3 siblings. It would make Tyrion and Daenerys Jon's aunt and uncle.
Okay. Yeah. Actually, Drew goes on to kind of mention, with these parallels, perhaps that points to Tyrion as a Targaryen, something I don't necessarily want to happen or think will happen, but it is odd that these three instances are pointed out time and time again, kind of driven home that they, died in childbirth. Maybe the seed is too strong for those mothers.
Yeah.
Well,
gosh, what's her name? Rhaella Targaryen had so many kids, and a lot of them died.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She had a ton of miscarriages.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, she did. So, yeah. So the seed's either too strong or it's not strong enough.
Well, it's not king, so it's probably all jacked up.
It's all jacked up, yeah. Okay, I like this. Okay, on to number 4. On to Mance Rayder, actually. So he obviously feels drawn to Winterfell, and being knowledgeable of the North, it could be general interest. However, I wonder if he is either a descendant of Bale the Bard's bastard with the Stark daughter, right? So there's a story there.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, giving him the blood of the Starks. It is said that Bale's son, who became legitimized to be a Stark to keep the line alive, brought his head back to Winterfell after killing the king beyond the wall on his attack south. And actually, Sir Matt, if you can pull up on the wiki, that whole story if you want to. There, maybe that Stark buried his father, Bale in the Crypts, whose presence there is drawing Mance to Winterfell. So maybe that's what's luring him to go. He goes to check out the king. Maybe he's been at Winterfell's halls.
The Bale
before.
The Bale the Bard story. I have it pulled up.
Yep.
So whenever you're ready.
Okay. And Mance was born as a wildling bastard to a son of that legitimized Stark who was serving on the wall. So, we've heard that that Mance's mother was a wildling and that his father was, a crow, man of the Night's Watch. Mm-hmm. So could that man have been someone, who was, a Stark descended from that legitimized Stark line? This would make Jon and Mance relatives. And if Mance is aware of that fact, as I think he is, he sees himself in Jon, and that explains the trust he inexplicably has in Jon, despite several protests from other free folk. I think that wraps up my thoughts for now. I just wanted to share these and see if you guys had any thoughts on them. Thanks for the podcast and the great work. Keep it up, Drew. Wow.
Here, let me go ahead and read the Bale the Bard story. According to Free Folk legend, Lord Brandon Stark, the Liege of the North, once called Bale a coward. To take revenge for this affront and prove his courage, Bale climbed the wall, took the King's Road, and entered Winterfell under the guise of a singer named Sigric of Skagos. Sounds similar to Mance Rayder. There he sang until midnight for the Lord. Impressed by his skills as a singer, Lord Stark asked Bale what he wanted as a reward, but he requested only the most beautiful flower blooming in Winterfell's garden. As the blue winter roses were just blooming, Brandon Stark presented him with one. The following morning, the maiden daughter of Lord Stark had disappeared, his only child, and her bed was and in her bed was the blue winter rose. Lord Brandon sent the members of the Night's Watch looking for them beyond the wall, but they never found Bale or the girl. The Stark line was on the verge of extinction when one day the girl was back in her room holding in her arms an infant. They had actually never left Winterfell, staying hidden in the crypts. Bale's bastard with Brandon's daughter became the new Lord Stark. 30 years later, Bale was king beyond the wall, and led the Wildlings army south, and he had to fight his own son at the Frozen Ford. There, incapable of killing his own blood, he let himself be killed by Lord Stark. His son brought Bale's head back to Winterfell, and his mother, who loved the bard, seeing the trophy, killed herself by leaping from the top of a tower. The son was eventually slain by the Boltons.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
sounds like there's a lot of parallels and things that could similarly happen. Mm-hmm. You've got the Blue Winter Rose, which is a tie to Lyanna. You've got Bale climbing over the wall, which sounds like Mance Rayder and coming up to there. Mm-hmm. You have the Stark line on the verge of extinction, maybe the Targaryen line verge of extinction with Jon Snow, same type of thing, being murdered by the Boltons. you never know. We kind of thought Jon could die, be raised again, a third time. And he says don't in the show. Could happen the same way in the books. I don't know.
Yeah, there's some interesting parallels and connections to be made there. So, Drew, I mean, honestly, good points. I think my favorite one there is the idea that I mean, not much is said about her interactions between the Stark boys. I think when she does meet Ned, she does have this interaction with him and Brandon, right? I mean, so I don't really know. Maybe something could have happened there, but between them, also the idea that Varys, takes a child from her, and that child is either murdered or shipped across the world, causing her to take her own life is very interesting. So, I don't know. There's a lot there. So I think that's pretty neat. Okay.